Okay, so now that we've gone over what to do when we read a poem, let's apply it. We're going to use a poem by Emily Dickinson, an American author. She doesn't usually name her poems. She numbered them, so this is number 260. However, publishers tend to just use the first line of her poems as the title. So this one is called I'm Nobody, Who Are You? The first part of reading a poem is the preview. So we want to look at what the poem looks like. As you can see, there are 2 stanzas. Each stanza has 4 lines. I noticed that there are question marks, exclamation marks, and dashes for punctuation. So now once you're in your OneNote notebook, you'll be able to annotate the poem right inside the notebook. And we're going to use what's called digital inking, and it's pretty cool. You can click on one of these writing tools, not the eraser, obviously. So I like the rainbow one. So in the rainbow, oh, you can even do stars. I'll do galaxy. I'm going to go through and I want to underline or circle any vocabulary that might be unfamiliar. So bog, live long, those are 2 words that might, oh, dreary is another one that might be unfamiliar. Okay, I'm going to want to define these. You'll see that I circled the words that were unfamiliar. I drew a line to the margin and I defined those words. Dreary means sad or gloomy. Live long means whole or entire. And bog is a swamp. Also, I want to highlight the punctuation so I know when I read it out loud where to pause. So we have an exclamation mark, we have question marks, we have dashes. And you want to do this throughout the entire poem. The next part of looking at a poem is looking for figurative language. Remember, these are things like simile, metaphor, personification, or hyperbole. And as I look through the poem, I see the phrase like a frog. That's a simile, so I want to underline it. I also see some personification here, admiring bog. So that's giving the bog a human characteristic. Don't forget that once you find the figurative language, you want to try to figure out why the poet used it. So why would Emily Dickinson compare being somebody to being like a frog? Think about that and write down some notes. So I decided that I thought she used like a frog because frogs are so loud. And I thought she said admiring bog because that's where the frogs live. So if we're thinking of it like a human being, a bog could be like a town for people. And there are sometimes loud people in the town. So now we've finished taking some initial notes about the poem and we haven't really read it yet. So I'm going to read it through for you. Pay attention to how I read it, where I pause with the punctuation, and as I read it, try to visualize, use your brain to imagine what the pictures would look like if you were painting a picture with this poem. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public. Like a frog. To tell one's name, the long June, to an admiring bog. In your notebook, I want you to write down the images that you see when I read the poem to you. Next, I want you to think about why or what Emily Dickinson was trying to tell her reader. Write down your answer in your notebook in a couple of short sentences.